Infinity Nation and beyond, we look at the status of your digital landscape and how it affects the growth and profitability of your business. On the show, we will be talking to business leads, partners in the e-commerce world, as well as some of our own specialist team to give you actionable insights and find solutions to help you on your growth journey today. We will consider new ideas, stretch our mindsets beyond the status quo, and in the process discover how to gain an edge on the competition and drive some great results.
Hi, my name is Al Keck, and thank you for joining me on the Infinity Nation and Beyond podcast. On today's podcast, we welcome Oli Spark from Suite Analytics. We're going to dive into the world of customer data and how we harness it to get the best results for your business. It's going to be an exciting discussion and lots of deep delving into ways to make your business smarter, more effective, and more efficient. Welcome, Ollie. How are you today?
I'm well, Al. Nice to see you. Thank you for inviting me to join you on your first podcast. That's very exciting.
A pleasure. Before we begin, can you tell us a little bit more about Suite?
Thanks, Al. I started Suite 3 years ago, having been a retail CEO myself for probably, as many as almost 18, 20 years for brands such as The White Company and Multi-York. And I suppose my frustration sort of during that process was that, so often have I tried to get to the numbers that I really wanted to run the businesses I was involved in. And really, I found that, I couldn't ever do so. And hence I began that rather sort of, entrepreneurial journey of saying, well, if I can't get it myself, I'll build what I want. And that's what we've been doing at Suite for the last 3 years. So now we mainly work for D2C clients, so direct to consumer, and we have about 60 brands now that we work with.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ollie. And I think, the last 18, 20 months of COVID world have really brought a pressure onto D2C retail, especially those that are multi-channel. Why is it that you see data as such an important topic, and where do you think lots of the companies are going wrong?
I think it's certainly a very hot topic, Al. I'd definitely say that. And I think the real thing why it's so vital at the moment is because, in the past, as I said, I think in the past it was quite difficult to get to the answers to make better decisions. And I think now with, the number of platforms there are that provide those solutions, it's really, really imperative that any business leader actually make sure they get to their data so they make better decisions. So I think that's why I think it's such an important topic, because I don't think it's acceptable now for people really to be running businesses without having really, really up-to-date and insightful information.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I think I reflect on my own experience when I was client side and the time that you would spend in going across a multitude of platforms to collate data to be able to do your sort of weekly or monthly reporting was just an ineffective use of time it's important to get the numbers, but I'm not sure it was a good use of a Monday morning to be able to do it. I think the other thing now is, as the competition grows online, we just need to be smarter, more efficient, and more effective of who we're marketing to, knowing that it's going to give us a good yield or a good return. And still too often, I think we're still seeing people sort of doing this, a more generic one-time, what's my return on my first order, not really understanding true customer lifetime value. But I'm sure we'll come into that into a bit. So I'm not going to jump ahead.
It seems you'd like to do the talk as well. We both come from that retail background, and I think that trading mentality is sort of what we both understand. And I think probably both of us in our businesses see where we think companies are going wrong on that. And I think really at the most basic level, if we just sort of take the view that I don't think enough businesses really understand the difference between acquisition and retention. So as a really basic point, I think that a lot of businesses still don't really run that core metric as a first understanding point. And I think that's so important because with any direct consumer business, every year you exist for a bit longer, you have more people in your database and your customer file, and so you have an inherent growth associated with having existing customers. But really, to really achieve growth in most businesses, you need to be acquiring customers. And I think, personally, I found, back in my old white company days, it was only when I understood that playoff between acquisition and retention that I really managed to deliver the growth that we really needed.
And I think that's a really interesting point, because I still believe that's the crux of the problem. That I still think everyone is very, and this may be a sweeping statement, very acquisition focused. I think I'd say a lot of businesses I look at or talk to are probably 75-80% focused on acquisition channels, driving revenue that way, driving growth that way, rather than truly understanding who a good customer is, who a loyal customer is, and how to find more of those people. So whilst they are growing, it feels like a hamster wheel of effect in terms of having to just pump hard to achieve that growth number, rather than sort of really building customer lifetime value, which I suppose ultimately for those business owners is building them enterprise value as well.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of interesting things there, Al, which I think I certainly see, is that I don't feel that a lot of people have, forecasting models that really allow them to understand quite, how that acquisition and retention numbers and which ones you can move in terms of growth. So, you may want to grow at 50%, but unless you can, translate that, that shift into a customer metrics number, as you talk about, how many people you've got to acquire, or can I get improve retention by 10%, and understand what the impact of those is. I feel, one of the things that a lot of companies still struggle with is having that forecasting model that really translates that into insightful things that you can measure against. And I think that's really important. And I think that's, even before you then move on to cost of acquiring. And so, I think we're trying to highlight things that we think perhaps people aren't doing that well. But I think once they've, even if they have got that whole understanding of new acquisition and retention, it then comes down to, how much does each one of those customer groups cost? Because I think we both know it's very rare that acquisition isn't where most of the money gets spent, as you mentioned. And unless people really understand that, whether their growth comes from acquisition or not, it's not a straight line between marketing budgets and growth targets. So it's no point saying that you're going to spend what usual 10 to 15, 20% on sales of your sales on marketing, if actually you want to grow faster than that, because it's not a linear relationship. So I think that relationship around what cost is and what cost of acquisition is, again, another part of the data set where I think companies have problems.
And in your experience and in your exposure to your client set, how many of them are targeted with a repeat purchase target, a improvement of customer lifetime value target? How many of them are targeted on to grow and push those levers versus drive top line revenue?
So rare, I think, is the truthful answer. I think I certainly believe that these are the really most important numbers, and that's what we're trying to provide clarity to. But I think one of the problems around the whole sort of data topic, obviously, is actually having people who have time to really look at the numbers, to understand those numbers. And I don't think still that businesses, though everyone, and I'm sure we'll talk about things like customer lifetime value and all those sort of things, I still don't think that many businesses are truly run on those fundamental concepts.
No.
I think the understanding is still quite low, despite these being very generic terms that people will bandy around very, very simply.
Yeah, I think there is an understanding is low, but I think as you highlighted earlier in the conversation, getting to the nub of this data and getting a sort of a clarity on how that business is performing right now is tough without a business intelligence tool to help process what is a vast volume of data. So I think for me, that's why I see most people struggle, and I know one of the other things, there's sort of a real bugbear is the wrong word, but a real passion of mine is actually that people do segmented email marketing and do sort of use the mentality I call, or phrase, the show me that you know me, show me that you understand what I've bought and what is the next logical product for me to come and buy. And too often, I think, again, people will just go, well, we need to send an email out this week. I'm not saying everyone, but I still see it a lot in my own inbox from marketing that it's just like, oh, here's this week's email and this is what's available for you to buy, rather than saying, here's what we think is relevant to you. And again, I think it's that whole piece about taking the time and effort to understand who that customer is. But again, having been client side, I think a lot of the time is they just don't have the time to do it, and to do it manually is very labor intense.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. The tools bit is really important, and I think obviously I come from this background now. I think the tools exist now. I'm not sure yet the behaviours yet have followed the tools so much. So as you say, the weekly email is such a common type of thing that people have in their thing, and we all know that day to day running a business, it is it's difficult to take that step away, but the tools are there, and I still do think that behavior, as much as anything else, people need to change their behaviors in order to achieve what you talked about there, Al, which is making marketing more personal.
Any views on what will drive that behavioral change?
I think consistently, I think probably, as always, starting at the top of any organization. But I think adoption of marketing tools is becoming it's a hot topic, as we know. I mean, as you asked about the beginning about data is a hot topic, and I don't think any CEO can really come to a business and say that they don't want to know the data, and that should create the pressure down the organization. I think the other place where it comes to, I think, being honest, I think the gap at the moment is, maybe people, maybe like us, Al, who've been around in the business for rather longer than we'd like to, but there's a big swathe of people who have had this problem of getting to data and have been used to working without having to have that rigor. And the digital ninjas, as I like to call them, they come, if they're educated, they're smart, they should be coming into our world with the desire to identify these core metrics and to drive them. So yeah. I think that's I think from both ends of the scale it could be driven in terms of changing that behavior.
Yeah, I suppose again it comes back to that challenge of education, isn't it? And there isn't really, that I've found yet, a true great source of educating digital marketeers at the moment. It's you go in and you learn from those above you, and it becomes systemic.
Exactly, and we all know that there are lots of great people there teaching the younger generation. But by the same token, it's as we all know, the job of a marketeer is very wide, and we haven't talked about product data, but I think again, one of the core values I really hold is that the marketing department can often be blamed, but actually it may be the product. And unless you can get to both those data sets in the same place, I think as a marketeer, you're hamstrung. And I think, again, in terms of skills, you really need to be able to, understand, what customers are buying what product, not just to be able to serve them future things, but even just understanding performance. If you haven't got the red coat, which you had last year, which was the best seller for new customers, maybe your customer acquisition isn't so good this year. And it's no fun we've both been there. The marketeer saying I've had a rubbish week, when actually you've been out of stock. You haven't had the great new product that you had last year. It's that combination of both marketing data, customer data, and product data, which I think is absolutely vital in this whole data set.
And I agree with you. I think it's almost why it's the linchpin to achieving growth. Because as you say, that an example, in a historical world, yes, they will have known the red coat sold well, but how easy is it for them to identify that that was a great product that all our new customers came in and bought? That's two separate camps, really. And historically, there's no easy or quick way to sort of match those two camps together.
I completely agree with you, Alan. I think, we've both sat in so many meetings without that, that thing and that joined up approach. But, with if one calls them customer data platforms, which sort of suite it's not a marketing technology term I like that much, but it's a current thing. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have clarity on who's buying what and understanding your customer groups. And clearly the other sort of marketing phrase of single customer view comes up a lot. And it is vital that any marketeer does have access to a single customer view that includes customer, browser, product information all in one place, all joined together with the marketing data. And I think going back to so where you started this originally, I think why is it such a hot topic? And because I think it's just it's the responsibility of marketing people to make sure they do have that breadth of information.
I think I completely agree, but I think it also then empowers them and the boards of those businesses to better understand the investment they make in terms of that longer term return that could be possible. And so that's where I really see the sort of there being a real difference in the businesses that kick on and grow, is once they've understood that cost of acquiring a customer and the laws of average in terms of lifetime potential by following some sort of better digital marketing rigor and discipline, they're the ones that then have the confidence to back themselves and invest behind the variety of marketing channels that there are to really sort of accelerate the growth and speak to a wider audience.
Yes, I agree, Alan. I think that, those two metrics of customer lifetime value and cost of acquisition are go back. I think you asked a question earlier on. So do I think people drive their businesses by them? Very rarely. And, if I talk about my own experience, years ago, it was when I understood that, it was okay to lose money when I acquired a customer because I knew that I made it back within 9 months. Now that then, built my funnel for the growth of the future years. And it's understanding that whole, playoff between those two, which I still think is, people don't automatically understand. And then, you've clearly got the next level of discussion, even if you can get to a top level cost of acquisition, as in which channel is it that is really driving those, and that can be an offline channel or an online channel. And that brings on to the whole topic of marketing attribution, which as we all know is conceptually quite hard and actually just technically quite hard. And so, but I think it is really important that those key metrics and beginning to, at least even at the top level, have some views on attribution is really important.
I think we'll have to do a separate blog post or podcast on the attribution. I think that's its own debate and topic.
You could ask someone else to that one. I'll willingly come back for a session too.
Okay. So just sort of looping back. So based on the insights that you're seeing in your tool, what is the most efficient way to learn about the client's business's most, their existing customer? What traits are you able to tell, and how does that benefit them and affect the bottom line?
Yeah, I think the key sort of things are around retention and repeat cycles. That's the key thing that we really look for in the existing customer metrics. I think gaps to purchase is a really important bit, because that then allows one to start looking at predictive cycles as well as just 3 months or normal RFM type analysis. I think it's really important to understand what the likely gap is, and I think again on that retention curve, understanding the retention curve is really important. And I think, as we probably both know, so often if you don't get people back in the first 3 months, of course, depending on what your product life cycle is, but talking businesses where you want to have high repeat rates, if you don't get them in the first 3 months, then you probably lost them. Now, many businesses obviously don't have that, faster repeat rate, but it's understanding what is the likely purchase gap, and then really trying to target the existing customer in that bit where they become more likely to purchase. So I think those are the really important things, and then understanding the product analysis associated with all existing customers, because again, if one doesn't understand, if there's an obvious second purchase, it's how you then present that to the customer and how you target them with that I think are the kind of things. So for me, it's that retention, repeat, and then really using the product to upsell and cross sell in the next cycle of how you contact people.
And are you then doing a lot of analysis on historical flows of what the first purchase and the second purchase was, to then sort of try and intimate?
Exactly that. We have, just talking from Suite, we have an audience builder which allows us to do segmentation really easily. And if I talk about a sort of gym business we've been working with for a long time, things like that, where we're really looking at the patterns of history. For instance, as well know, gym memberships are a common thing where you bring people in on a low offer and then you hope that you convert them to a long-term subscription. And we're really often in that a good example where we're really looking at patterns of what we can identify before people drop off, to try and bring in those early warning actions to try and increase that retention number. So yeah, we do. History is always key, and I think too often it can be undervalued what's in history. History is, we find, generally a pretty good predictor of what's going to happen next.
I call it the hidden gold mine that we all sit on, but rarely do we excavate.
Exactly. Funny, I was at a client meeting yesterday, and it was that typical thing where we're looking at why have sales not done so well, and then actually you realize that you've bumped into a huge success of a particular product backed by a marketing effort, and it's no good spotting that in the week at the end of the month, saying actually we didn't do quite so well because last year we had a huge bump. You've got to be looking forward, but it's all so often for me, life always begins with what happened last year. Let's start with that. And I know that's a slightly old-fashioned sort of view, but let's at least always start with that, because it does give you a firm base on which to really start working out what might happen if you want to achieve your goals going forward.
Okay, so we've covered a lot there in terms of people who've got a wealth of history to analyze, and what can we do. What tips have you got for people that maybe a younger business, maybe have only got 12, 24 months of data, and what tips can you offer them, or suggestions? Because typically we would look at a lifetime value cycle over 3 years, again depending on what product sold, it, etc. So someone with less data, how can this insight still help them?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. Now, I think actually I'd just go one stage back to businesses that are at startup and don't have business. And we've had a couple of clients recently who fortunately have had amazing successes in a very short amount of time. And I think the real lesson I've always been pushing there is about everyone talks about digital first, but data first, I think, is another really important concept, because going back to our point on learning from last year, if you don't start collecting the data from the very beginning, and you don't, then there's no point being 6 months in and people starting asking questions. So we've definitely, I know, added real value by putting in that data first approach. So I think that's where I would always say for people who are probably low on data, but on your sort of thing about people with shorter time spans, there are always lessons out to be learned out of any time span. From our absolute view, we'd love to have 4 or 5 years worth of history, and it produces a lovely model. But even short-term models produce really, I think, really good insights. If I think of a couple of other businesses we've got who are proper businesses that have transferred from being wholesale businesses attached to the pandemic, and that's really then they've started businesses from scratch. And here we are, a year and a bit on, and I know that data from just from 1 year gives us great value in terms of it. So I really don't think people should be put off just because they've only got relatively short trading history or even relatively short access to data.
Cool, thanks, Al. I suppose now we know more about our customers historically. What would your sort of key tips be now in terms of factoring that into the movement and the growth of that business moving forward? So how do you factor in, building loyalty and retention, as we've talked about? We think that's a key metric and milestone. And any other tips? I know when we've used your tool, I'm a big fan of trying to utilize it to go and find more like-minded customers, because the laws of probability is if I can go and find a customer that's like some of my champions or VIPs, however you want to talk about them, is the laws of average and tested across multiple clients is that they will act like our great customers, which means they'll be more loyal and they'll spend more money with the client. So what tips have you got? Yeah,
I think our segmentation is the key to for me in terms of all of that. And with tools like ours, you can segment really easily, and then you can drive those out into Facebook. You're able to use your first party data into so many platforms now at a segmented level. So I really believe that the one big learn out of this is using your data, because again, data or any platform, it's only as good as you actually driving some action from it.
Yeah,
and that's the really important bit. So I don't think any marketing leader should feel secure, secure just because they've got a platform in. The really important bit is what do they then do with it. And for us, the real things are the usual of really identifying what your audience is, and then using that audience to push the usual channels that we all know, like Facebook and Google. But you may have an audience that unsubscribed audience. There may be customers who have unsubscribed and for email, and we all know that they often may or may not have unsubscribed for because they really didn't want to talk to you or not. And so then you can pick up other channels like direct mail. And I think again, it's looking at the whole marketing mix, Al, that really matters. And really understanding your customer that you can then do through a segmentation tool. And I think that's the really important thing.
Segmentation is the key tool.
So segmentation is definitely a driver of value in our mind.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. I mean, is there any other points you want to cover? I mean, I think that's been really useful, conscious that we could sit here for hours and hours and talk about this. Over numerous pints and glasses of red wine, but
exactly. You're
not sure we'll keep everyone's interest for that long.
Okay, I haven't even. We've done this, and I haven't even been offered the red wine, so I'm not quite sure how it works at this point. No, I think the thing I would always stress is I think you and I both come to this with very sort of similar beliefs about data is so important. It really shouldn't be seen as the barrier. I mean, if I take my own platform, if you're on a sort of standard e-commerce tech stack, it takes 15 minutes to set up. There shouldn't be that fear around data, which I think, fear and inertia, no one was prepared to move. No one was prepared to try because, you just disappeared into an IT nightmare and, nothing ever happened. And it was, too demoralizing. There really is no reason why people shouldn't be actively testing, moving forward with data, because, APIs and everything make it just so much easier to do.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really important thing for me, that, people, it's not impossible.
No, I remember the integration projects of old, and that didn't make it impossible. It made it financially unviable. But as you say, 15 minutes, you're up and running. I really don't see what you've got to lose, and there's only lots to gain.
That's certainly where I come from. And if you come on, particularly on sort of Shopify, Magento, all those common platforms, it really is that easy. And people should be able to have access to these key metrics we've talked about.
Brilliant. Where can we learn more about Sweet?
Thanks, Al. I love a plug. That's ideal to get that in at the end. So sweetanalytics.com is our website. We'd love people to get in touch. And then, Al, we're very pleased to have done a couple of projects with you, and coming in via Infinity Nation. Clearly, either way is we're happy for. And Al, we work. We've I think worked on a couple of sides now. Just literally client day to day, but I think the secondary thing around investors using the combination of our data skills and your digital skills is another really important thing that I'd love people to come to us for, and I think that could come via either of us in terms of that.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great to chat, and we look forward to catching up and discussing some more e-com tips soon.
Thank you, Al. Thanks for including me.
Thanks for joining us all.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to stay in front of what's up next, hit subscribe or please follow Infinity Nation on LinkedIn or Instagram, where we drop upcoming interviews and regular tips and insights. Until next time.